and welcome to the People's Cathedral Community Conversations. I am Alison Norville, and it's a pleasure to have you join us this evening. This evening, we have with us the Family Cooperative Credit Union's 40th anniversary presentation, and on our panel, we have Andrea Phillips and Pat Aline. Andrea Phillips is the president of the credit union, and Pat Aline is a member of the supervisory committee. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Now, as I mentioned before, we have the 40th anniversary of the Family Cooperative Credit Union, and we're going to find out some history about the credit union today. And first of all, Andrea, could you just give us an idea of what year was the credit union formed?
The credit union was formed in 1981, the 2nd of June, 1981.
Thank you. And Pat, I guess you could elaborate for me a bit. It was formed in 1981, but what was the feedback back then about having a credit union at the church? Any idea what kind of feedback was being given?
Thank you, Alison, for asking. At that
You're
time,
welcome.
members, they did have a need, and therefore they were looking for a resolution to that need.
Mm-hmm.
And to fulfill that need, our late Reverend Dr. Holmes Williams had the vision to start the credit union. And you know, he wasn't in that vision alone. There were approximately, I would say, about 9 other members who would have walked with him in this journey. At the moment, I recall that 4 of them are deceased at this present time, like including Brother Greenidge and the late Donald Stanton. But we do have persons very much alive who were there in that initial venture. We do have Elder Edgel, who's still there. We have Sister Esme Blackman and Reverend Edwin Bullen as well, you know, and Pastor Ferdinand Nichols, persons of that nature.
Right out the gate. First one's pretty much part of the formulation of the credit union per se. Yes. And, you know, I must say that I can only imagine that there's a sense of well, not necessarily pride, but heritage when you reflect on those earlier years. But Andrea, tell us a bit about what are some of the events that might have led up to the credit union being started?
Well, the pastor at the time, he realized that the financial need, the banks, they would have gone to the banks at the point in time, and the banks weren't giving them the loans that they wanted. So he wanted to help out the members of the church in order that they can get loans at a reasonable rate that will help them meet their dreams.
And Pat, let's talk a bit about the initial years. Were there any highs and lows during those times? Because as you might have mentioned, Andrew would have mentioned, persons were struggling back then to get loans and whatnot. So was it a case of like an influx of persons applying at the same time? Did they have people who just rushed in? So tell us a bit about the pros and the cons, the high and lows during that time.
Yes, from what I've been part of the history that would have been written, members were really anxious to have their needs met, you know. And it was out of volunteerism that all this would have been done. And there would have been a constant like inquiries, you know, to the office to find out how soon and when. And apparently it did come with a lot of excitement. They were really excited, Sister Alison.
So did you have like throngs of people standing out at the time? And I'm just trying to picture it now, you know. Was it a case of persons meeting after church and talking about it? Was it something like that? Or was it something that was done just during the week?
it was quite different from how we are now. You know, we are in COVID, and you know, it's the
Yes.
physical distancing. It was
Yes.
nothing like that. It was the
Mhm.
fellowship, it was the joy overflowing, it was the they would have come to church, they would have been making their inquiries. And as I said, there were volunteers there in the day that would have been able to ask, you know. But
Yes.
definitely, there was not a lack, definitely, for members not being there. They were there. I
Mhm.
couldn't tell you like 500 or whatever,
Right,
but
right.
you know what was important? The
Mhm.
constancy and the purpose that they were looking to have met. That was a joy
Amen.
for them.
I can imagine.
Oh,
And
yes.
was the, like I'm trying to think of the staff per se at that point in time. I mean, what kind of emotion probably would have been feeling at that time to be a part of something so structured and geared towards the members of the church. Give us a sense of feeling of how they might have felt back then being a part of something so substantial and so important.
But I can tell you that the key persons that would have been dealing with those members would have
Mhm.
been the late Brother Greenage, better known
Mhm.
as Brother G. And he
Yes.
has always brought excitement and joy when it came to the credit union. And he would have had Sister Edgel alongside her. And, you know,
Mhm.
between the two of them, they were
Mhm.
quite able to handle those requests. But there was excitement. I can tell you, based on those stories that were related,
Yes.
definitely to have met those needs.
Now, I've also noticed that at one point in 1985 that there was the Buying Club, and it pretty much came into existence in 1985. And Andrew, could you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Well, at the point in time, they realized that food items were probably costly for certain members to purchase. So when they thought about the buying club, they thought that it was established with the purpose of making these food items, you know, like sugar and tin foods and some rice and flour to make at a reasonable price for our members. So that was the whole concept and thought behind the buying club.
Now, I need you to elaborate some more for me, Andrea. In terms of the Buying Club, that was something that came out of the credit union. Was that an initiative from the credit union called the Buying Club, or was that something that was just pretty much say it came up through the church, and then persons would go to the credit union to get assistance to get it done? Tell us a bit more about the Buying Club.
The buying club did come out of the credit union. At the
Mm-hmm.
point in time, remember the credit union was a saving society. And when the buying club came about, it was like, you know, because the credit union is all about family
Yeah.
and finding ways and means in order for us
Mm-hmm.
to help out our family, which is the church family at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, you know, to help persons to save money and, you know, get some food at a reasonable cost was very helpful to the members of the credit union at the time.
I can imagine around Christmas time, most of all, that the Buying Club could have really come in handy. What about you? What do you think about that? I'm imagining Christmas time would have been an interesting time.
Yes, I surely believe that as well. I
Now,
understand.
Go ahead.
I understand from persons speaking about it, it was actually doing very, 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 very well when it first started.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's hoping that there can be a resurgence of the Buying Club, especially now during these COVID times. Maybe that's something that you all might want to look at and consider going forward. And you would have mentioned the Saving Society. So I see that the Family Cooperative Credit Union was once called the Saving Society, and in 1984 it was changed. The name was changed from Saving Society to Family Co-op Credit Union. Could you elaborate on that? Tell us a bit about why that choice was made to change the name.
The family was played a very special part in the late Reverend Dr. Holmes Williams' heart. And, you know, we were transitioning from a cooperative movement, and we are moving from transitioning into a cooperative movement. Therefore, we had to change the name to Family Cooperative Credit Union. It was no longer a savings society. It was now becoming the cooperative movement. So we had to make our name to suit.
Right. For the person who is not necessarily learned in these, give us the difference, tell us the difference between a savings society in comparison to family co-op credit union. What is a co-op? What's the difference, please?
The co-op is a nonprofit organization where persons come together and they own, it is members own it isn't that it is owned by another entity or anything. It is actually owned by the members. So any funds or anything belongs to the members. And then we will use the members' funds then to supply loans or and that kind of stuff to help other members meet their dreams.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And Pat, what impact did persons such as Brother Leon Greenwich, Brother G, Elder Phyllis Edgell, Mr. Ronald Shepard play in the credit union? I know you mentioned a bit about it earlier tonight, but give us a bit more, tell us a bit more about the impact that would have been made. I know you mentioned about Brother G's exuberance, and we felt that all the way through the years. I came and I felt that exuberance from Brother G. His heart and soul was in the credit union.
That's right.
But tell us a bit more about the others, Elder Phyllis Edgell and Mr. Ronald Shepard. What impact did such persons play in the credit union?
Thank you. Our elder, Phyllis Edgell, she worked closely with Brother Greenwich at that time. Those two names were more or less synonymous to the credit union. When you say Brother Greenwich, you say Sister Edgell, as we familiarly would call her. And they worked very well as a team. I can say Sister Edgell is a very meticulous administrator. So she would have held up the administration from that perspective. And she herself would have held several positions in the credit union, being a director, being loans officer, being the chief financial officer, the delinquency chairman, quite a few positions, and she served very well alongside Brother Greenwich. But if I can add more about Brother Greenwich, he was a long-standing president. The president is at the helm of the credit union. He would have held the presidency for several years. And seeing he would have had lots of experience from being in the transport co-op, family co-op was then able to benefit from his knowledge and his experience, I remembered him especially saying to the members at AGM, save how? Regularly. How to borrow? Wisely. And how to repay? Promptly. And he will always finish that slogan by saying, it is the people's money. You better repay it. And for many AGMs, we would have heard him, but that is very, very meaningful. Huh? Mm-hmm. Another thing that he stood up for was, there was a time the Credit Union League, they were really upgrading their training sessions. And I remember a year the Credit Union Family Co-op was awarded the President's Award for our interest in education. And that team was led by Brother Greenwich, especially in the year 2005. We did several training sessions, through the league. That's just to take us a couple hours to really tell you about the things he would have done, and our elder Edgell. Also, Ronald Shepard, he was one of the founding members, and he had remained very faithful throughout the credit union's journey.
You mentioned that the credit union would have played a significant role towards education. Could you elaborate a bit more about that for me in terms of education? What exactly did you do? Was it a form of allowing students to get uniforms, etc.? What exactly was it about?
Okay, when I refer to education, I'm speaking about the Barbados Cooperative League, their training program. It's
Okay,
ready to equip officers and volunteers to serve in a better way, you know. For lack of knowledge, we perish, eh? So they
that's
were
right.
making sure that we were guided in the regulations of the family cooperative credit union, even to know things like the bylaws and whatnot with the registrar department, the
Mhm.
and now with the Financial Services Commission. So training is very critical. We have training for board members. We have training for credit committee members, supervisory. We have training for retirement. We have training how to handle loans. And right now, like today, we're going through plenty compliance training pertaining to anti-money laundering. So that's the type of training. It's bridge between business as well as personal development, because there's a place where you can have training for retirement or how to learn to budget. That's the kind of environment we're in.
So would you say then that even a nonprofit organization as a co-op would be, that you still have to be wary of persons or individuals who may want to use the co-op as a way to, you know, hide funds and whatnot. So that's where education comes in.
Certainly, most definitely. And today's training focused so much on the anti-money laundering and combating terrorism and fraud. Yes, as you say, there are so many persons out there that will want to scheme the system. And don't mind, we are a faith-based credit union and we are a church. We still need to be very alert and aware that there are persons out there, both good and bad. You know,
Exactly.
at times, sorry, you may wonder, why do the credit union may have to go through so much paperwork? But we
Right.
cannot take chances, because when it comes to fraudulent activity, there are those persons who will prey on the goodness of a credit union member to filter, you know, the fraudulent behavior throughout the system. So we
Mhm.
really need to be well educated and aware as
Mhm.
credit union members.
And you said a good credit union member, a good member, you know, an unsuspecting member is there no ready and willing to assist, and then you have persons with underhanded behavior aimed towards the credit union, and you have to be
That's
very
right.
wary of that. So I
That's
fully
right.
agree with having ongoing education, really important in any
That's
financial institution, whether it be nonprofit or not.
right. Hmm.
Let's talk a bit now about the relationship between the church and the credit union. We kind of talked about it earlier, but the matter of how you would have a credit union from your own assembly, and then you have members like Brother Leon Greenwich, who's the first president of the credit union, and you want to know, ask yourself, what kind of relationship would members of the church have within the credit union and themselves? Did you have a good, hearty relationship with the members of the assembly? And that question is aimed towards Pat.
Certainly, I can testify that the church and the credit union, they have a very healthy relationship. And you know
Mm-hmm.
why? We see the church as the parent company to the,
That's
the
right.
credit union. Remember, the vision came out of the then pastor of the church, who would have been even visionary oriented in other areas, you know, such as the school, which is education, which is also into like radio. So this area was financed, that the vision came and the credit union was set up, definitely. And I can tell you that members have not forgotten their roots or their beginning. They would always recognize it was birthed out of the church. However, we need to recognize that the credit union is a separate and distinct entity, definitely. Accounts are held separately, definitely. And reporting is done to the present registrar, like the Financial Services Commission. So it is an independent organization, though it was birthed out of the church. And there's a very harmonious and courteous relationship. As we had evidence, where did we have our 40th anniversary service?
That's right.
At home in the church.
That's right. Absolutely. And I know by now our viewers are saying we're hearing a lot about Brother G, but I mean we could just go on all evening about Brother G. He was the first president of the credit union. But how much of a role does the president of the credit union play? Tell us a bit about the job that the president of the credit union plays. What's his job per se?
Would you like me to take that one?
I absolutely would. Thank you so much.
Okay. The president's role in the credit union centers around policy making. The president is at the helm of the board, assisted by a vice president. At the end of the day, it always comes back to whoever is the president. So you're looking at your policy manuals, you're looking at good governance, you are looking at your strategic planning, etc., etc. You set the tone and you pave the way for where the credit union is going. Then the other committees, the elected ones, as well as the ad hoc committees, then can work around you.
Correct. And over to you, Andrea. As the current president, what are some of the tasks that you consider to be paramount at this time?
Well, the current is trying to make sure that we meet the requirements of the Financial Service Commission or regulator. And this has a lot to do with compliance with the anti-money laundering and combating terrorism and fraud. And also trying to review our policies to make sure that, that they're up to par with their requirements. And also trying to come up with the business plan and the strategic plan for the credit union during this period, especially this time when we are going through a pandemic. And still trying to make sure that we stand by what our motto said, members first.
Absolutely. Praise the Lord. And we did look into that a bit earlier. Is there any particular type of training that a certain level persons in the board of directors and being the president, do you have to go into more in-depth training? I could imagine that you would have to go into a more in-depth training than would a regular member or, of that level. Do you have to, how is it? How's your daily procedure as the president of the family co-op?
We have to, as not just the president, but the entire executive, which is made up of the directors, the supervisory committee and the credit committee, we all have to attend these trainings. And these training sessions are usually done through the Barbados Cooperative Credit Union League. They are responsible for setting up the sessions, as well as the regulator, the Financial Service Commission. They would send us correspondence often to keep us abreast on what is happening and what we need to do in order to comply. One of the other things that we as president, you need to do is try to, where compliance is concerned, to make sure that, working with the office staff, Carolyn and Madeline, to make sure to help them to make sure that we are complying with everything that we need to the requirements of the regulators.
During this COVID time, how has the credit union been able to evolve or, shift in terms of these trying times? How any particular strategic plans were put in place?
Yes, with the credit union, we had to, with COVID, like during the shutdown, we had the office operating, following the various protocols implemented by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We also put in place things like a drop box, where if you needed to make deposits or pay your loans, there's a drop box facility. And we also allow persons to do online banking, where they can transfer the money to our bank account. So that way, and if they do need to come to, because right now our space is small, there are not too many persons that can come into the office. So we ask persons to call ahead and say, okay, well, we would like to come to the credit union, so that we will not have persons standing outside in the sun. So we try to accommodate our members.
Thank you. And in terms of, as I mentioned before, the whole find, did you have an influx of people applying for loans, or did you find it was a lot quieter around that time?
It was
especially
a lot quieter.
The earlier days.
It was a lot quieter. Yes, it was very much quieter. Yes,
I could imagine.
Because at this time, remember, persons would have lost their jobs; they would have become unemployed. On some cases, some persons, because of the business closed temporarily, they weren't having income to coming in. But we are willing to work with our members in whatever situations that they have, to assist them to the best that we can.
And that's wonderful. That's very important. It's very comforting to know that no matter what storm it is, that we can ride through it. We can ride the storm with Christ ahead of us, guiding us. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Now over to Pat. Initially, only the People's Cathedral and Christ is the Answers Family Church, they were the only churches whose members were involved in the credit union. However, that changed in 2006, allowing all members of all 24 Powie churches to become members. So what series of events led to that change coming about?
Actually, I think it was around the year 2004, about, when Powie individual churches, some of them were making inquiries with the then registrar of cooperatives about having their own credit union. And as being a credit union, there is that element of cooperation and whatnot in there. So the registrar department then referred them to the Family Cooperative Credit Union, which came out of a Powie church, and referred them to us that they could have had the information. And actually, from the registrar's perspective, the idea was to have them embrace in the Family Cooperative Credit Union that was already established, rather than setting up these other individual credit unions. Because, it's all about unity and cooperative and coming together as brothers and sisters. So what happened? They met with Brother Greenwich, the late Brother Greenwich, who would have been the then president, and he has always been eager when it came to membership. So he would have met with them. He sat them down. He shared the information with them. He gave them guidelines, and he would have left it up to them to respond whether or not they will become a part of the family cooperative credit union. And I must say that the response was there and then positive, because several of them took up the offer. I think one of the first churches that would have done that would have been Elim Pentecostal Church, and others followed. Okay.
I think that's fantastic. And you know, I think I tend to agree. Instead of having so many different, you know, communities all over the place, and credit union, one cooperative credit union under POWI, and then everyone can just come together and support each other, members first.
Yes.
The whole theme of members first. How do you know how that came about? Members first. It's such a simple slogan.
I am not quite sure, but what I would say, I think it ties in with what Sister Andrea would have shared earlier about that family-like connection. There's that family and unity and togetherness, and to recognize the humanity of persons, and to realize that the human being is the number one reserve, and our members are our number one resource. So in all what we are doing, our members are at the top of all our resources. So we would have been able to hold that that motto in relationship to the value that we have of our members. Okay.
Amen. Now, there was further change in 2012 that allowed all members of evangelical churches to become members of the credit union. So what series of events led to that occurring at the time?
Yes, that's what I was actually going to add, you know, when I spoke earlier, because it was a very similar situation. You know, we do have several evangelical churches on the island, and they were interested in setting up a credit union. And again, the referral came right to us, the Family Cooperative Credit Union, and we did the same thing all over again, you know. And I can say that journey with POWI and the evangelicals, I do believe that after celebrating this 40th anniversary, we are going to be renewed in our energies to go after the POWI churches and the evangelical churches.
Amen. Especially when things get later, you know,
Yes,
things
please.
flow a lot better. We
Right.
for sure that
Most
can definitely
definitely.
happen. Now, Andrea, a question. Thank you, Pat. Andrea, how
Most
has the credit union evolved over time in your eyes, before your eyes?
Looking back at through the years, you would have back then you would have had passbooks. Members would have had a passbook where it would have recorded every single transaction that they did when they come to the credit union. We've moved away from that passbook, that manual recording of transactions, now to a computerized accounting system where our members now even receive their statements by mail every quarter. Or even if they need the information and they come into the credit union, to them. We had an office established back then. I think they didn't have an office when they first started. Now in 2005 and present, we actually have an office where our members can come in and do transactions. We also had extended the bond of membership by allowing, you know, the other POWI churches and evangelical churches to join us, because it is not the People's Cathedral Credit Union. It is the Family Co-op Credit Union. And despite the fact that our location is at the People's Cathedral compound, the credit union does not belong to the People's Cathedral. And that is one of the things I heard and kept stressing as I was researching the history of the credit union.
Mm.
We also started to offer our members a service of cash disbursements, meaning that depending on, instead of having to get a check, they can funds in cash rather than by check, depending on a limit. There is a limit. We were able to offer now several types of loan categories to meet our member needs. We were able to allow, instead of parents opening in their account, their name accounts for their children, we have the juniors are now members, and that it goes up to the age of 16. We've had good support from the league, the Barbados Cooperative Credit Union League, the umbrella body for thing through education, giving us guidance and direction. As a, you know, that as we right now as a small size credit union, because compared to Barbados Public Workers and the city of Bridgetown, you know, we are small. And the training that we mentioned before about compliance, anti-money laundering, and the requirements by the FSC, and part of how we have to do business today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, what is the relationship per se between family co-op and other cooperative credit unions on the island? Is it a way where you all connect? Do you find time to connect or have any sort of meetings or educational meetings or anything like that, any sort of forums between different credit unions?
Yes,
Is it great camaraderie?
Yes, we do have sessions through the same education programs offered by the league. And sometimes the league would call meetings, invite us to attend meetings to have discussion on certain matters. So then we often, as well as every credit union would normally issue an invitation to their general meeting to come in. And that's how we get to communicate between each other, learn what the other is doing. You know, sometimes you learn and you're like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe let's see if we can implement this at our credit union, or find a way to implement it into a similar thing into the credit union. But there is that camaraderie and mixture between communication and stuff like that. Because if we needed information on something and we don't understand, we can reach out to one of our brothers and sisters credit union and ask a question and ask, you know, do y'all do this? How do you do it? Give us guidance. So that assistance is there.
That's fantastic. It's so comforting to know that you don't feel as though you're just an island in the middle of the ocean by yourself, but that there's actually, there are people and institutions out there ready and willing to help. That's so important. Yes. So let's delve in a little bit.
Sorry.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
If I may add to what Andrea has said, I can speak to a hive of social activities, especially prior to COVID. There were times like annually coming on to year end, we will look forward to the invitation to a nice dinner. It used to be a celebration of the work that would have been done during the year, you know, coming out to those educational sessions. Also, credit unions are very, very high and big on celebrating their anniversaries. We have quite a few anniversary dinners. Actually, I think our last anniversary dinner was when we became 30 years. And we had that at the South Coast Hotel. And we invited other credit unions. And in reciprocation, they always invited us to those dinners. So the social activity was there. Then you would have had what you call the Co-op Day, which used to happen around July. that was like an excursion day or a picnic day, and persons will go out and celebrate that day. And
Turn
Brenda,
out.
there's
Sorry.
also International Credit Union Week, which comes about the third week in October. And you will normally have a series of activities in there. And of course, again, the social activities and nice dinners at some of the best hotels we would normally enjoy prior to COVID. So it allowed us that bonding and camaraderie and what you would call today the networking, and you get tips and you get at the pointers what to do and where to go. So it's a very healthy environment to be in. Actually, I came to the church because of the International Credit Union Week. That's how come I came to People's Cathedral. And that was
Tell us a bit more about that, Pat. That's
awesome. Way back, like in 1986, about 35 years ago. So, you know, just to reinforce the kind of environment that the credit union offers. It's healthy, it's holistic. You get the education, you get the social activities, you get the business activities.
Absolutely, because as you mentioned, the atmosphere would have to be healthy and encouraging, because we were able to get a great asset in by having you. So I'm very glad that you were able to join us. Amen. Amen. Because I wanted a bit, but I wanted to know about your journey in becoming a member of the credit union and going through the years. I could just imagine how many different hats you've probably worn over the years. So tell us a little bit about your journey in the credit union.
Actually, I think I joined the credit union in the year 1999, after being a member at People's about 10 years thereabout. And when I joined, I became a director. I was a director for about 6 years, the secretary to the board, etc., etc. At the end of that tenure, which was like 2005, that's where the credit union's office opened. And I was the first administrator there then for about 9 years. And after that, I held positions like on the board again as director and on the supervisory committee, perhaps going about 6 years. And with the ad hoc committees in membership and financial counseling, etc.
Well, as I mentioned before, Pat, I'm so glad that you joined the People's Cathedral, even if it was all back in 1986. We're very happy to have you, and we're very grateful for all that you've done over the years. Yes, you are a great asset.
Thank you, Alison.
You are welcome. Now, I want to ask a question right now about, let's get really basic right now. How can someone join the credit union? And I'm going to put that question towards Andrea.
Joining the credit union is very easy. You can call the credit union. Our number is 537-0248. And you can speak with either Madeline Thornhill or Carolyn Barrow. Let them know you're interested in joining the credit union, and they will tell you how to come in so that you can complete the form and bring the necessary documentation. To join the credit union, you must bring 2 forms of identification. And you also have to purchase, in order to be a member, you have to purchase shares. Right now with the form, because of certain requirements by the FSC, it's going to see that a tedious process of filling out the form, but the information is required. And all persons, as long as you are a member of PARI or the evangelical churches, you can join our credit union.
Now, for example, someone may ask, how soon would I be able to get a loan? If I've just joined the credit union, how soon can I get a loan?
Okay, to get a loan, you have to wait until you are a member for 6 months and you are in good standing, meaning that you continue to make deposits every month or as regular as possible.
And how are people vetted? I know we spoke a bit about it earlier, but tell us a bit more about how are people vetted before you allow them to become a member of the credit union?
We were just based on the and the other thing too is if you belong to another credit union, before you can actually become a member of our credit union, out of courtesy, we have to reach out to that credit union that you belongs to, to find out, if it is okay that they can join our credit union. As far as vetting is controlled, based on the information that you put onto the form, we look through it and we take that into consideration.
You had mentioned about the junior savers account. Could you remind us the ages for persons to be on the junior savers account to join? I know the children, of course, but the age would be great.
I would say from 0 to 16 years.
0 to 16.
Yes.
You hear that, parent? 0 to 16. All right. I want to delve a bit more into, you were mentioning earlier about education. And one of the things I want to know exactly, what does FACTA mean? FACTA, FACTA. What does that mean per se?
Basically, FACTA has to do with getting information from us pertaining to financial information pertaining to persons who either reside in the United States of America or Canada. At some point in time, they can send to Barbados asking for information on a particular individual. We need to be able to have that information in order to pass on to them.
So in other words, if someone wanted to perhaps send money to Barbados or get money from Barbados, is that what that heading comes under?
No.
Would you be able to verify that person?
No, that's not.
Tell me a bit more then.
It is more along the lines of, okay, so if you had, and I think it has a lot to do with taxes as well. So if you have, you might be using, instead of depositing your money overseas where those persons can see what your true worth is, you might be sending the money to Barbados and depositing the money here. So they might just want to make sure that you're not laundering the money here in Barbados. And so they ask for the information, and it all has to do with trying to tax the persons to make sure that the persons are actually complying within those countries.
Correct. Not have any money hidden anywhere in another island.
Yes.
Like you see on certain TV shows.
Yes.
Oh, you have some money hidden in the Cayman Islands, that kind of stuff you see on TV all the time. So I'm so glad for that clarification.
So that is why the anti-money laundering is very, very important as well.
I can imagine. Now, Andrea, what is the vision going forward as the credit union heads into its 40th year and beyond? Imagine 40 years. What is the vision going forward?
Vision going forward to the credit union. In fact, as you said, to get practical, we want to increase our membership. And because the more members we have, it means we'll be able, the more loan categories, the more funds we'll be able to offer our members. So we're going to be looking at changes to our cooperative structure. And one of the things to achieve that is that we're going to be having a series of meetings with members from PAWI and the evangelical churches. We're going to be issuing invitations to those pastors and reverends so that we can come into their church and, speak about what Family Co-op Credit Union is all about, and, what we can do to them, and also hear from them what they expect from a credit union. We're going to find innovative ways to make doing business easier and more efficient. That means where technology is concerned, we're going to try to find ways of how we can get communication out to our members. We're going to be updating our policies. Is one of the requirements of the Financial Service Commission that we update our policies, review and update our policies every year. We also have, one of the things we need to look forward to doing is to response time to the regulator, the FSC, when they send information. We want to have, we spoke a lot about education, and we spoke about education for the executive committee and the directors. However, we want to have more educational programs out there for our members, because with these changes coming on and the expectations from the regulator, we have to let them know, okay, what is expected. For example, when they want to get a loan, you know, when we ask for certain requirements, why we are asking for these documents for support. When they want to become a member, we ask them, okay, well, the questions on the members, we have to ask them if they're related or to a pet, which is a important person, which would be, for example, like the government, a high-risk individual. Those are the questions that, you know, would come, some of the questions that will come about. So we need to educate our members to let them know, so that they will know that, you know, we are being trying to make things hard for them more. That we just want to make things easy. So we're going to have more education for our members. We're going to also, we have to update our membership information. Currently, we would have persons have been in the credit union for many years, but we have to update our information. There's something called KY, know your customers, KYC, know your customers. And we're expected to do that. So we need to have updated information on our members. So we'll be sending out soon forms for our members to complete, to send back to us, so that we can have updated information, because we are audited, you know, like the accountant comes in and he audits our financials, whatever, but we are also audited to make sure that we are complying with the FSC's requirements. And so therefore, you know, we have to do these things in place. It might seem thing, but things will get easier. So those are some of the things that we have going forward. We are trying to, one of the things we will be looking at for membership, you know, because right now our membership is mostly the older generation. We want to reach out to the young generation within our churches to get them to come on. And we know that we want to hear from them to know, okay, what they're looking for. So these are the kind of things that we have as a vision going forward for the next 41 years and beyond.
Amen. Amen. Yes, and I think it's a very, very good idea. Pat, would you like to elaborate on anything that Andrew said?
Yes, I embrace what Andrea has said. From my perspective, I had some keywords that I think we need to focus on. One is change, saying we need to be ready to embrace change behavior, mindset, perception, etc., as well as the education that you've heard so much about, to really have a good appreciation for education, because it makes a difference. Then I will speak to commitment. Anytime you come on board within the credit union, you need to be committed, not only in words, but in action. It's work, it's work, it's work. But remember, as we work, we will see the fruit of our labor, okay? So we need more than the promises and the ideas. We need tough work to be done to get us further afield, as well as look at our product line. We need to line up with the reality and the needs of today, and look at our product line that is being offered. And I will end all that by saying, God will complete the work that he has started. Amen. I do have confidence in that.
Hallelujah. Amen. Ladies, thank you very much for spending some quality time with me this evening. I truly appreciate all that you spoke about and all that we chatted about. With us once again, we have Andrew Phillips, President, and Pat Ali, a member of the Supervisory Committee of the Family Cooperative Credit Union, and they are celebrating their 40th anniversary. And this has been community conversations. That's right, guys. So as you can tell, it's a change in format. It's not just a regular evening service, but we've been having some lovely discussions of late, panel discussions. And so going forward for our season, we will be calling it Community Conversations. And so I hope that you will join us again next week. But before I go, I just want to go ahead and remind you of our services. On Wednesday evening at 6 p.m., we will have a panel discussion, and it will be focused on finance, hosted by the Family Cooperative Credit Union, and it will also be streamed on our social media platforms. On Thursday, we have our miracle service, and Minister Russell Blackman will share the word. On Friday, we have emergent youth upstairs in the upper room, and within the sanctuary at 6 p.m., we will have prayer and praises, and will be hosted once again by Family Cooperative Credit Union. Sunday morning services will continue as usual, 7:30 and 10:15. And once again in the evening, we'll have another community conversation. So you need to stay tuned regarding what we'll be discussing. And ladies, thank you once again for joining me. It has indeed been a pleasure. And to our viewers, thank you as well for joining us. I am Alison Norville, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.